The Lunaverse, episode 13.5, Greengrass's Night, by Grassy Clouds 2, Chapter 1, Builder et Puissance. 8 p.m. The Night Court. The elite ponies who were empowered by Luna herself to administer the land. The lowliest member could overturn the rulings of elected officials on a whim. The highest had the ear of the princess and, through her, could dictate policy that could benefit or harm thousands of ponies. There was no criminal that could not be pardoned, no hero that could not be shackled, no business that could not be boosted into a massive corporation, or seized or dissolved by the will of the court. Indeed, those honored few who were admitted to its ranks could be said to control the lives of every being in Equestria. They were respected, they were feared, and sometimes they were bored. Duke Greengrass sighed and sat on his flanks.
Honestly, Notary, why are we even here? This is the very definition of banal.
Greengrass was a brown-coated earth pony, slightly shorter than average, and just a pound or two more stout. His red mane somehow managed to be both dull and garish at the same time, although no pony, least of all Greengrass himself, could explain quite how he managed that. His cutie mark was a large red X, in the same color as his mane. Trying to figure out what it meant had become a popular pastime among the groups and whispers of the court.
Good at marking tests,
was the leading theory.
Because I tend to vote on the measure this morning and felt that you should at least appear to be informed about it,
said Notary. She was a nondescript mare, also an earth pony, with a white coat and mane. Notary was from a long line of servants and secretaries who specialized in being neither seen nor heard except by their masters, and Greengrass found her enormously useful for precisely that reason. Her remarkable memory, superlative attention to detail, and candid honesty were also useful. Of course.
Furthermore, you wish to ascertain whether Vice-Stream Sons would be in attendance.
and she isn't. It's ascertained,
said Greengrass.
so I would like to go now.
The two were in the Duke's booth, overlooking the large chamber where ponies had brought proposals before the court. The chamber had a large floor area with seating in the lower court members, the press, and whoever had wrangled seats. There was also a raised stage in the middle of the dais for the speaker. The higher members of the court sat in booths, raised up along the walls. The booths were comfortable, and since becoming a duke, Greengrass had taken pleasure in enjoying this. But it didn't really help in this particular case.
Every pony knows how this vote will go,
muttered Greengrass the Notary.
Every single pony in these booths, and Bilderberg too. There's no point in this speech. Puissance and Fisher have been trying to get to that grant for months, and Fisher won last month. They should have just built it then and be done with it.
No,
I suppose Builder thinks that some of the voting court members might change their minds.
She needs 3 votes for Puissance to get the grant, and she doesn't have them. Whatever Puissance offered Builder to have that grant sent to her fiefdom, it clearly wasn't enough. This dramatic last-grab effort notwithstanding.
It will look bad for us to leave early,
said Notary. There was a hint of warning in her voice.
I was not going to actually leave. I won't disrespect the court over something so trivial.
Greengrass smiled slightly.
But it's not disrespectful to complain if you're the only pony to hear it.
I'm honored, sir,
drawled Notary. After a few minutes, Builder began to wrap up.
And so, I thank this great court in advance for agreeing to follow this construction grant, and I humbly request that the construction be persistent in Viceroy Puissance District, where it could be most useful. Thank you for your time.
After the applause died down, Greengrass rose.
Do we have anything else scheduled for tonight?
Florine's Blue Blood is wasting your time at 1, and then there's the vote at 6.
Greengrass sighed.
Why do they let that idiot call meetings still? He is the dumbest pony in the court.
Nepotism, sir.
Before they could actually get out of the booth, there was a hurried thumping in the sound, and a letter slid under the door. As Notary knelt to pick it up, Greengrass heard hoofsteps fleeting.
And they say I'm unsubtle,
he said. Notary from the letter began to read it.
Your presence is requested at 9 o'clock in the western wing of the library.
The western? Good grief. This is a secret meeting designed by some pony who has read too much during due. There's a perfectly fine cafe 5 minutes from the castle.
Perhaps the waiter is afraid of a waiter seeing you.
Waiters see hundreds of customers every day. That's not notable. 2 ponies sulking in the library?
Greengrass sighed.
Well, I suppose I should see what they want.
Would, would you like me to get costume chains?
Costume was a skilled makeup artist who Greengrass hired on occasion to impersonate him, usually when trying to fool some third party. Not enough time. Greengrass checked his watch. But do get Ox and Bear. If this is some kind of setup, I want to be well developed. Thanks, Notary.
Notary nodded,
And she was gone.
Greengrass entered the western wing of the library at 9 sharp, looking for all the world like he owned the place. Flanking him were Ox and Bear, 2 large ponies, one blue and one from the Earth tribe, one purple and a unicorn, who spoke little and bucked hard. Greengrass's contact was waiting for him in the library. It was Builder Brick. Builder was swaying slightly, and her breath, my apologies, was shallow, like she was very nervous.
Interesting, Greengrass thought.
Duke! Builder bowed. I've heard you are powerful and influential in the court, and that you get things done. Builder said, now not so much so nervous so that way she doesn't have a very deep voice. As flattery went, it was one of the other better attempts Greengrass had heard. The usual tactic was along the lines of, you're handsome, or I'm unworthy to even look at some pony as majestic as you, both of which were obvious lies. Still, flattery only went so far.
Thank you, said Greengrass, but if you wanted to compliment me, you could have done so in public.
It's, very important to me that the grant be awarded in Puissant's district. I would be grateful were you to help with this.
Why does it matter to you?
Asked Greengrass. Well, it's a secret.
Then I can't help.
Greengrass rose. This was a bluff. He turned around if he had to, and laughed it off, maybe compliment Builder on her ability to keep a secret. But he didn't think he'd need to. Builder looked nervous and desperate for help. Seeds cracked, probably, and tell Greengrass whatever he wanted to know. And she did. Wait! There's a lot of building in Puissant's Providence, but the Viceroy will only be interested in me if I can show her what I can do. With this grant, it's my only chance. Isn't there anything you could do?
Oh, Puissance, I should have known. That can't be my consideration. I have to vote based on what's best for Equestria.
Greengrass' voice had become even a little more prodding.
Would putting the grant into fiefdom be better than letting Fisher have it?
Translation.
I may want to help you. Give me a politically acceptable reason.
Builder nodded and began to rattle off a series of statistics that, Greengrass guessed, said nothing at all but sounded very impressive.
All right,
the Duke said at the end.
I suppose these are good arguments, but I also have a specific duty to my constituents. This wouldn't have any negative effects on them, would it?
Translation.
What's in it for me?
On the contrary, in return for your help, the Builder Corporation, of which I'm in charge, would be happy to offer, say, a 10% discount on masonry and construction in your fiefdom for the next year. Greengrass felt that he could get more.
We aren't doing much construction these days.
Other nobles then too. Maybe nobles you need to vote with you. Now there was something Greengrass could use. He could think of at least 4 nobles who were both cash-strapped and wanted to embark on construction projects. Holding this over their heads could be very useful. Plus, a death from the Builder family could also be useful. It would be in Greengrass's interest to intervene. But could he do it? Fisher was canning. He might have a vote or 2 loose, but Greengrass would somehow need to find 3 courtiers to flip and vote for Puissance. Flip, despite Greengrass not having enough time to put together any kind of reasonable offer. Puissance had already tried everything she could. Frankly, she had more resources than the Duke. She was far older than him, and had been in the court for longer. She had favors she could call in. If she couldn't find the 3 votes, what could he do? But on the other hand, well, he did like a talent. Besides, he was one of the smartest ponies in the court, and if you didn't know that, he would be happy to tell you. He could, he figured, swindle 3 votes over to Viceroy's side. He could at least try. The reward was high enough to make it worth the attempt. He glanced at Ox, who nodded. At least as far as he could tell. No other ponies were in the library. Bear nodded too. No magical listening devices. It was safe to talk.
Very generous. Well, I might be able to help you.
Excellent! Builder's face broke into a relieved smile. Thank you.
Greengrass rose. I'll send you a list of the fiefdoms in the morning,
he said, in a voice that made it quite clear that Builder would be honored to accept this list, no matter how many names were on it.
Now, if you'll excuse me.
Out of the library, back to his quarters, he found Notary filling out paperwork.
Notary!
Yes, sir.
Where is Viceroy Puissance?
Your quarters, sir. Notary paused. Dare I ask why?
I would hope you would guess.
You're going to try to change a vote that's been decided for a month, despite not having the slightest plan of how to do so, and knowing that it'll be politically humiliating if you fail.
Exactly. Come on, Notary. This will be a great adventure.
You have the finest of battle cries, sir. Greengrass, I'm honored for the social call, but really, if I wanted your help, I would have asked you.
Vice-Ring Puissance was an old mare, old enough that her mane had gone silver with age, yet she still wielded an impressive amount of power on the court. A son, 2 daughters, and a nephew had all schemed to usurp her and take the Puissance seat. None of them were sorry to Camelot no more, and for various reasons, none could return for years. Puissance's remaining family knew better than to try to take her place until she was ready to give it up, which likely meant when she was dead. Ugh, but Vice-Ring, it occurred to me that you might not have realized how much help I could be. There are all these rumors that I'm just some arrogant ghost stallion who is due to be drawn out of the court any day now for my sheer gall. There are also rumors that you are Lex Luthor.
I don't think if it's a rumor, if it's true, said Puissance dryly. Really, the way things are done here, and you haven't quite guessed it.
My loss, I suppose. In the meantime, I do seem to have created a bit of influence. I like to demonstrate it, so these points that I could play the game just like them.
Well, I'm sure that will help you. I don't see why you would select me for this particular demonstration of power, unless Builder is bribing you.
Greengrass didn't respond right away. Studying Puissance carefully, he hadn't dealt with as much as the old mare as he would have liked. He wasn't sure how to push her buttons with some of the younger, more foolish nobles. He had little to bribe her with, that he could not get her for herself. She would laugh off threats, as he was unlikely to be swayed by charisma. Pride, greed, revenge, love, none of them seemed quite right. But he wasn't worried. This was where his special talent would come in. His talent honed by acute political senses. Fear. It was just one word, flitting across his mind, but the word brought it with a vision, and he saw the outlines of a plan. Nothing so gross. I do confess I have an ulterior motive, but that brickhead has nothing to do with it, lied Greengrass. Dread's lies weren't all that common in the court. Half-truths, lives of omission, creatively worded deceptions were much more common. But that was yet another thing Greengrass was never quite bothered to take into account. May I come in? The Vice-Ring's quarters were crowded with memorabilia of her long and storied career. Awards she had won and honors she had bestowed upon her. Souvenirs from the vast domains she had controlled at one point or another. A few trophies for defeated enemies. Greengrass, knowing he was in the presence of a political master, could have easily have him exiled to the mild west if he felt like it. He felt a rare sense of unease, but he ignored it, and the only way out was forward. I confess, I thought of approaching you for help in a scheme or two in my own few months, said Greengrass, about the time of the Grand Gala, but seeing you in such peril.
Peril?
Puissance laughed, and Greengrass had to give her credit. It sounded genuine.
One grant won't imperil my career, Greengrass.
It's not the grant, said Greengrass, with as much fake sincerity as he could muster, but what it represents, Vice-Ring. Think. You've been in the court for so many years. When was the last time you've lost a battle of any importance to a pony like Archduke Visser?
Oh, I'm not undefeated, whatever my publicist says,
said Puissance, but she smiled slightly, an acknowledgment of the compliment. But that's my point exactly. You have this reputation of being undefeated, at least by any pony with a duchy or less. This one grant may not matter, but it will signal to your enemies that you've lost your touch. They will move in and try to carve up all the political power you've accrued. Puissance's eyes widened as he looked away. Greengrass had struck a nerve. It had been a long time since Puissance had fought a real battle, so he probably hadn't expected this one to be so hard. Much less that he would lose it. He was probably, Greengrass thought, looking at her career and wondering if it was all downhill, if the next attempt by a family member to overthrow her would succeed, and leave her as an old spinster in a drafty old castle. Yes, intellectually, she would know that the grant was not significant overall game, and that she would bury Archduke Visser if she wanted. But emotionally, the first loss after a string of wins, that would be frightening.
I'm touched by your concern, Duke. It's so unlike you,
said Puissance. Like I said, I want to ally with you later. If you're weakened from this, that hurts me.
Greengrass nodded, figuring out his next steps. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend that I have altruistic motives. We both know that no pony in the court does. But we can help each other. If you let me help you preserve that reputation of yours now, perhaps even enhance it, I won't mind if you spread the rumor that you duped me into helping you. Then all I ask in return is your support for me, later, at the gala. Pusan thought, I suppose there wouldn't be much cost to me. Of course not. I understand if you can't spare. That's not what I said. Puissance looked indignant. Greengrass smiled to himself. Another reminder of how tapped out Puissance was at this moment. It helped her along the route he wanted her to take. Puissance, meanwhile, recovered and said, Well, let me put it like this. What would you want from me? You've been paying closer attention to this than I. Who are Fisher's 3 weakest supporters? All I want is those names, and your agreement to help me at the gala, of course. Puissance shut her eyes for a moment. Take care, Greengrass. If you betray me, or if this gala vote is something inane like voting for you to be the new emperor of Equestria, I will ensure that your destruction is so complete that they will tell cautionary tales about you to new courtiers every year. Pulling a Greengrass will become shorthand for an idiotic, devastating mistake from which there is no recovery, and no hope of any end save resignation and disgrace. There was steel in her voice. When the vice string threatened you, Greengrass knew. You paid her great heed. Or used to. In a few months, when all any pony remembered was that the great Grussons had been sinking, and the bright young Greengrass had to bail her out, things might be different. But Puissance wasn't thinking that, and Greengrass wasn't going to remind her. Of course, he said, I'm not so foolish as to hurt you. There you have my word, and the names. Well, Prince Bluebird for one. He's an idiot. I'd flip him myself now if I didn't need 2 more votes. I can't think of any other votes you could flip tonight. Are there any factions besides you and Fisher? Some third group? Justice Posey leads the group that's considering the grant based on the merits, rather than whether they would ally with Fisher or I. Puissance shrugged. They mostly side with Fisher. I won't deny that conditions in this domain are more favorable slightly than mine. But 1 or 2 more of them could be bamboozled easily enough. Greengrass, as a statistician, was very good at turning random numbers into a persuasive argument. He pushed one thought to the side. What about ponies who are in town now, who Fisher hasn't had a chance to shore up? None. But our justice nobility will vote however Cat and Lightning of the Northern Army tells her, and Lightning's been at this border for a week now. It's catching the early train to speak to her before the vote, but every pony knows that he'll tell her to vote for Fisher. Lightning would be hard. Greengrass knew him by rep. He cared only about the safety of his soldiers in the province. Fisher had probably promised him more funding or soldiers to assert the Archduke's vote. I think that's all I need. Good luck, said Puissance. You're going to need it. Greengrass grinned. If I wanted a safe career, I wouldn't have gotten into politics. Don't worry. If you fail, I think you'll have plenty of time to consider other careers. Greengrass chuckled and laughed. Okay, now I have to actually find them. The vote's at 6 a.m., and half of them are on other committees or out of the castle. Well, no time like the present. Chapter 2. Posey, Blueblood, and Mountie. Prince Blueblood. Greengrass, with no retraining, stood in front of the unicorn. A moment of your time. I have no time for you, said the haunting unicorn. He didn't even look at Greengrass. I have a presentation to prepare for. I wanted to talk to you about. I told you I'm busy. It's a political. I assure you, my political matters are far more weightier than those of your fiefdom, said Blueblood. Now, excuse me, you may speak to me after my proposal at 1, Greengrass. He spoke as bestowing a great favor. Good night. He turned the corner and disappeared to a private room. Greengrass rolled his eyes. He still needed Blueblood, but it wouldn't help if he irritated the unicorn by pestering him. He had to wait until after the proposal's end. Okay, who's next? Captain Lightning will not return for several hours yet, said Nori. 4 members of Posey's faction, though, are available to talk, or will be within an hour. Posey herself and Duke Sand will be playing chess with Fancy Pants and Fleur de Lis at midnight. The Baron of... Wait. Sand. He owes me a favor. Greengrass smiled. The next steps of his plan were appearing as mine. Not a big enough favor to vote my way, but... Yes, that's it.
Notary, come up with some errand we can ask Sanford to take care of us. Doesn't matter what it is, just as long as it will take him enough time that he can't make his chess game.
How will his missing the chess game help us, sir?
I'll explain on the way.
Because it sounds like you plan on using the opportunity to take his place. It convince Posey to support you. And fill you with fancy pants and fleur-de-lis.
Well, yes. What's wrong with that?
Fleur-de-lis is a gossip who will fear you're playing to Fisher. Fancy Pants is, according to you, quite intelligent and will likely interfere with your plan for his own reasons. And Posey has little reason to want to help you.
That's it. Greengrass laughed. I've had tougher fights.
Yes, the one that landed you unconscious for 3 days was one such fight.
The brand salient winced at the memory. Be that as may, flipping Posey isn't necessarily my intention. I like that, but if I can't, I have another idea in mind.
Very well, sir. Will you need me, or would you prefer for me to attend our plans for lightning?
You start those. The bits are in their usual place. 300 should do it. But take more if you need them. Greengrass nodded. I'm counting on you here.
Of course, sir. I won't let you down.
Notary looked determined.
You can depend on me.
Excellent. Midnight.
Oh, the Greengrass.
Greengrass turned to see the smiling face of fragrant Posey. He had been pacing the corridor for 10 minutes, waiting for Posey to show up and bump into him. But he didn't let that show on his face. Duchess! Hello. How can I help you?
Apparently, you'd stolen my chess partner,
said Posey with a respectful look.
Duke Sand sent me a note that he's filing a census report you were neglecting.
Oh, I am so sorry. When I asked for his help, I had no idea he was to be otherwise occupied. Greengrass looked abashed and bowed his head. I deeply apologize. Duchess, please allow me to make it up to you.
How?
Well, as it happens, I've played a few games of chess in my time. If you need a partner, I can set aside my plans and aid you.
Posey smiled. I suppose that's fair, but I should warn you, Fancy Pants and Fleur-de-Lis are quite good.
Well, I suppose a drubbing at the board is the least I deserve for inconveniencing such a noble as a Pegasus yourself. Posey laughed and led the way. The chess venue was a late-night cafe within the candlelight courtyard. Posey and Greengrass ordered coffees and went to sit at one of the chess tables on the patio. Fleur-de-Lis and Fancy Pants were already there, sitting at a neighboring table.
Greengrass, how good it is to see you again!
Yay, Fancy Pants!
Said Fancy Pants. His grin was that of a broad smile of a child.
Trip back for Tottenham went well, I trust.
Fine, said Greengrass. No problems.
Tottenham,
asked Posey. We were just at the big farm competition out that way, explained Greengrass, as celebrity justice.
Splendid competition,
added Fancy Pants.
And the food was delicious, I must say. Maybe I'll do tasting competitions more often.
Fleur-de-Lis chuckled.
A lovely idea, dear.
Just the food is so sublime. All those plates, those who impress somebody like me. It makes you feel really valued.
Greengrass managed to not roll his eyes. Ponies as dumb as Fancy Pants appeared to be didn't last long at the court. They were chewed up and spit out in very short order. Fancy Pants had been around for years, Sergo. He wasn't as dumb as he acted. Lazy, though. He held the same position for years, with seemingly no effort to move up. Greengrass found that incomprehensible. It's safe, I suppose, having no ambitions, since no pony thinks you're a threat. But what a waste of life, thought the Duke. A waiter began setting up pieces on 2 chessboards. Posey explains that they played bughouse chess, in which the white player on one board partnered with the black player on the other. When one player captured a piece, he or she could pass it to their partner, who could play it on their turn instead of moving. Greengrass himself liked this variety of game. It was a treat to see that Posey did too. They decided that the teams would be mares versus stallions, with Greengrass as white, playing Fleur and Posey as white against Fancy Pants. Greengrass made his first move. I see you're wearing your locket, Posey, he said.
Oh, yes,
Posey smiled.
I just got it back.
It was stolen, I heard,
said Fancy Pants.
Yes, by 2 unicorns, but they were caught in Philadelphia.
Posey nodded as he moved a piece.
Thank you for your help, Duke.
No problem. When I heard what they tried, I couldn't do nothing.
What did they try? asked Fleur. Now see, Greengrass thought, was dumb as a brick. Fancy Pants' trophy mare friend, probably for his cover as a shallow nitwit. How could he tolerate such a vapid gossip? Greengrass could never know. They wrote me a letter from prison, said Posy. Her voice was sad, but also firm. It was the voice of a mare who could not be cowed. They told me that if I didn't drop the charges, they would drag out the trial and make me look horrible. They even threatened to bring Fluttering Posy into it, make up stories about her. I couldn't let that stand, said Greengrass, as sanctimonious as a tone he could muster. It was hard, since he dictated that letter himself, and had gone to considerable trouble to make it look like Flim and Flam had written and sent it, but he managed. I contacted the warden and the judge and told him what had happened, how those two were using their freedom to communicate to harass and intimidate Posy. Flim and Flam were moved to solitary confinement, their writing implements removed, and their trial will be closed to the public. They won't be able to hurt Posy anymore. I appreciate it, said Posy. I knew that if I had acted, it would look suspicious. After all, they stole from me, so some might think I want to interfere with the trial. It was my pleasure to help, said the Duke. The real reason he had gone to all that trouble had been to make sure the unicorns wouldn't be able to tell any pony that the Duke hired them, which had turned out to be a rather poor decision in retrospect. But Posy's gratitude was quite a useful bonus.
Quite kind of you, said Fancy Pants. An honorable pony through and through you are.
He captured Posy's king's knight and pawn and passed it to the Duke.
You know, I think I heard about that case. Did those unicorns kidnap a phone?
If so, I imagine that he'd be charged with it, Greengrass said, naturally.
I wish there was some way to ask them. If they did, they ought to be made paid for it,
Fancy Pants said, almost wistfully. Well, as they're charged with treason and now harassing the victim by mail, it might be difficult to talk to them, Greengrass said. I don't think they can receive visitors or contact the outside world. Still, if you really want, perhaps it could be arranged. He probably wants this, but his idiot persona wouldn't want to go through the work, so...
Oh, not if it would be a bother,
said Fancy Pants. Knew it. They paid for a half an hour more, with Fancy Pants taking a quick lead over Posy, and Greengrass using the extra pieces to box for her in.
I say, said Fancy Pants, you're quite good at this, Greengrass.
Thanks. And then, feeling that it was time that he got on with what he had shown up to do, he said, By the way, Posy, I was just talking to Vice-Stream Puissance. Apparently, you lead the swing faction in a vote this morning. Me? I wouldn't say that. There's a few of us who got together to do some fact-checking, that's all. Still, I heard you're in charge. We all came to our conclusions independently, Posy frowned. Wait, are you trying to get me to change my vote because...
No!
Greengrass lied as he held up his front hoofs. No, honest, I might be new, but I know better than to try to manipulate you, Duchess. Posy smiled. Flatterer, but my mind's made up. I do appreciate helping me deal with those unicorns, Greengrass, and I would like to repay you, but I can't on this. Fisher needs to grant more than a vice-reign. Understood. Greengrass placed the captured knight on the floor, forking Fleur's queen and queen's rook. Surely, there's got to be some way to get through to her. Use Fluttering Posy, maybe. Or perhaps her husband's business. But nothing came to him. He couldn't think of any way to get Posy to change her mind in one night. It didn't help that Posy was unusually sensitive to manipulation. She was hard to maneuver into a particular voting way. He wouldn't be able to get their vote. He wouldn't be able to get her vote. On to the next plan, then. But just what I mean. With a personality like that, I bet none of the ponies in your faction wanted to question you. Posy laughed. That's not true at all. Even though I knew how I was voting, many of the others took a lot longer to make up their minds. Come on, thought the Duke. Tell me what I want to hear. Posy, at ease, relaxed, and having fun with her friends, said so. Baron Mountain Max only decided a couple of days ago, after all. Ha ha! Now I know who in her faction took the longest to decide. Probably the least sure, the most conflicted about his vote. Excellent. And he's for Visser too? Of course. The evidence really does lead that way. Well, good luck then. Greengrass smiled. I hope it's the right choice.
Ah!
Fancy Pants said, I propose of absolutely nothing.
It's always so refreshing when we can share the camaraderie despite being on opposite sides of some issues.
Yes, said Greengrass. Yes, it is. Greengrass had sat through a lot of meetings on the Night Court, but this was, without doubt, the stupidest one yet. Our nation is in peril, Blue Blood said from the podium. He was trying to sound authoritative, but could only reach the level of blustery. Corona, the tyrant's son, could return at any time. She could even now be striking at some frontier of Providence. She had tried to counter it directly last time, but why wouldn't she do it again? Wondered Greengrass. But we wouldn't notice, as we lack a sophisticated warning system. If some disaster strikes at our borders, such as fire, flood, or Corona herself, it can take hours, days sometimes, for news to reach the capital. If the tyrant's son were to appear at our furthest reaches, how could we know in time to muster a response? Night turning to day for no reason, that would be a hint. Thought Greengrass. What's he going to propose? He asked Notary.
He recently invaded a chariot company, said Notary. He'll probably...
The Righteous Wing Chariot Company has offered to sell to quote 1,000 chariots at a substantial discount. Lewis said, these chariots could be positioned strategically all along our border. At the first sign of any trouble, they can be dispatched to counter our foreign assistance. And Pegasi alone are enough because, remember Greengrass?
That wouldn't make making money, sir.
Greengrass chuckled. These chariots can be flown by Pegasi and mounted by unicorns. Unicorns with sufficient magic to assure escape from any conceivable disaster. Blue was saying, yes, all those unicorns we have are reserved that can fend off Corona, whispered Greengrass. Brilliant, if only they actually existed. Notary smiled.
May I ask what you think?
Greengrass thought that he didn't get Blue Blood. Like Fancy Pants, Blue Blood wasn't as stupid as he acted, if only because any pony that stupid would have wandered off the castle ramparts by that point. So it was an act, at least in part. But it wasn't an act that worked. Blue Blood had been a vice count forever, so no signs of advancing, and none of his schemes ever seemed to get off the ground. Take this one, for example. It was terrible on their merits, if for no other reason than it seemed to assume that no pony in the government or military had thought of this problem and come up with some kind of frontier warning system. But Greengrass probably could have still pulled it off. If he had been proposing it, he would have gotten the others to support it as a PR stunt. Still, even he could have done it alone. He would need an ally to sell it, said Greengrass. Some pony to make a big deal about how this is the perfect defense measure, and how any pony who disagrees about doesn't care about the safety of the country. If he had few of those, then he could spin the others as not caring if the country burns. That might give him enough support to pass the bill. But he can't do it himself, because he's obviously biased. And if he can't get those few supporters, then even the press will know that there's nothing of substance here. This won't pass. Allies seem to be a perpetual problem for Blue Blood. Every now and then, he would make a big deal about having the Baron of somewhere over for tea, or investing in account and such. Within a few weeks, his partnerships invariably dissolved. Either Blue Blood really was as useless as he looked, or he didn't know how to keep good allies. Whatever the case, that sank him, like it was doing now.
You know, sir, said Nori, if like me, if you helped him here, you might feel grateful.
But if I look as dumb as him, the others won't listen to me later. His is not the only vote I need. Counter Greengrass. Pride. The thoughts blinked into the Duke's head, and he sighed. Yes, pride was Blue Blood's weak point. He would need to appeal to the unicorn's pride, which, at this point, meant keeping this stupid motion alive, without looking as dumb as a unicorn. If I pretend I'm Blue Blood's ally, then I'll look a bit opportunistic. But then again, aren't we all? I just need to make it very clear that I don't believe this nonsense. I have to say, I'm pleased that some ponies finally consider the important issue of frontier defense, said Greengrass, his gaze started on Blue Blood, but he allowed it to drift down to the press gallery. I think this measure will make it quite clear that, though we live and work in Carolot, we care about all equestrians, even those on the furthest reaches of the land. Notary nudged Greengrass, who pretended to realize he was staring, and brought his gaze back to the address at the start of the court. Blue Blood, you've my support, and, I would hope, the support of the rest of the court. We're all noble ponies, after all, and none of us want to be seen. None of us would want to be the sort to let the frontier fall into danger. There. This would be a pretty strong indicator that my only concern here is PR. They won't think I believe Blue Blood's nonsense, and now they need to support too, unless they don't want to look like they care about the country and lose favor. Or at least...
Well, I'm not convinced of the economics, said one Baroness. Obviously, the defense is important, but the most efficient way?
Bloodblood, we'll need more fingers. Yes, and I move that we table this for a few days while Viscount Blueblood puts together a more detailed proposal, echoed the Countess. The chamber dissolved into discussion and whispering. Greengrass smiled to himself as he looked at the murmuring nobles. Tabling for a few days will give them time to try to spin the press the other way. Fine. I don't care about this bill at all. All I need here is Blueblood. I just stuck my neck out for his bill. Even he has to see that. I move, said Rising Puissance, that we table this motion for 3 days and revisit it at that time. The motion carried.
You!
Said Blueblood as Greengrass approached him in the hall. How could you do that? All right, said the Duke, looking both scared and somehow relieved to see Blueblood. I bought us some time. The rest is up to you. What? Did you see them? They were going to dismiss your idea without even listening. And then if Corona returned, well, you'd be right, but it'd be too late.
Yes, but...
The best I could do was get you 3 days to build your case. Go to the press. Make it clear that Equestria's very fate is at stake.
Look like an idiot.
Make it so that they have to support you. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. I'm still a political neophyte, I guess. He still doesn't think much of me. If I act dumb, he won't worry about his helping me coming back to bite him. But I hope I'll be able to give you enough to, well, save the country.
Help save the country?
Blueblood, who was probably unused to actually being praised, or told he did something right, smiled a little.
Well, I suppose your speech was quite acceptable. You performed admirably for one as new to the court yourself.
He paused, thinking.
I'd like to know, though, why you supported the bill. National defense was never your strong suit.
You're a pony to know around here, lied Greengrass. With your family connections, influence, skill, well, I like to work with you. Consider this a token of what I could offer.
Blueblood smiled. Well, I think, if you keep acting as you did, we could be useful allies.
Greengrass nodded. Thank you.
When I get enough power, I'm going to banish you. Auction off the right to pick where. It will be the greatest fundraiser in the court's history.
Now, you did say I could have a moment of your time.
Oh, yes, well, what is it?
I'd like to ask you to vote for Pouance over Fisher in the vote at 6 for the big grant. It would mean a lot to me. Greengrass tried to look pleading and helpful. Obviously, you're too noble to care that it was Fisher that was leading the chorus of dismiss motions, but
he was.
He hadn't been, but Blueblood wouldn't know that.
Oh, that's right.
Is he acting, or is he just that dumb? Well, I suppose it doesn't matter now. But I do hope that he'll show some of that Blueblood generosity I've heard praised so highly in all quarters, and, though it's far more than I deserve, aid me by supporting Puissance.
Blueblood considered. All right, he said. I should show Fisher that he can expect from betraying me, and I will reward your support.
It sounded like a king giving a vassal a huge boon.
But I expect your loyalty again when this motion is brought back before the floor, Greengrass.
Oh, certainly. By then, the papers will speak so poorly of this that even you won't be dumb enough to bring it back to a vote. Blueblood laughed. Greengrass smiled. 1 down, 2 to go. 2 a.m. Baron Mounty! Thank the stars I found you. Mounty blinked blearily at the Duke.
Was trying to take a nap, Mounty muttered. What's going on?
Mounty Max was in charge of a very small domain up to the north of the mountains. His family had political positions for centuries, but Mounty looked like to be the first to buck that tradition. At least, until he heroically saved a group of foals from a rock slide. With his heritage and heroism, Monty's succession to ascension to the court had been more or less than guaranteed, even though the pony would probably rather be climbing the mountains than sitting and voting on measures he barely understood. Even younger than Greengrass, and somehow a bit naive, serving for a few months as a voting member of the court, he was still much more on top of the mountains than in the council room. Greengrass had been pleased to learn that this was one of his votes he could try for. The neophyte Mounty would never see him coming. Urgent new information. I've been sent to you directly to make sure you know of it, said the Duke. He pushed his way onto the Baron's rooms, which had such a bunch of mountaineering gear and souvenirs from mountains he had climbed. I've overcome great obstacles to bring you these tidings of great import. Mounty could only say,
for the vote in the next few hours.
Exactly the one.
Mine's made up. I'm voting for Fisher. Go away,
muttered Mounty. You made up your mind based on the information Fisher presented, but it's all false. Greengrass took a bunch of papers out from his saddlebag. His statistician had just finished with them. Everything he said to support his proposal was a complete lie. I did my own surveys of the land and just got the results. Why are you here? Go talk to Posey. He's leading our faction. Posey. The thought popped into his mind. This wasn't political intuition. He was pretty sure that it was his special talent kicking in. He wants to help Posey. Probably feels he owes her. I know she helped show him the ropes. Okay, I could use this, but not yet. First, I have to make him think that voting for Puissance is the correct choice. Already have, but she's committed, and you know how seriously she takes her word. She wouldn't even consider switching. Greengrass paused. Can't you just look at the information? If you don't find it persuasive, all you've lost is a few minutes. But if it is, you'll have been saved from voting the wrong way and sending a large grand project to a district that doesn't need it in any way. Matthew weighed his way to an easy chair and sat down. Well, okay. I mean, if you really got the important information. Greengrass began to talk, chaining together strings and statistics for 20 minutes. Each one sounded more urgent and devastating than the last. Tax rates, salt level rates, price of tea and staying hoof, everything was used, and the picture of Greengrass painted was not good at all for Fisher. Stonebayne doesn't need this grant. They couldn't use it if they got it. He said, You need to vote for once. But I looked at all this already, and I decided, why? Greengrass wouldn't give him a chance to gather his thoughts. What did you decide? Based on the construction needed about the needs, Fisher needs it more. So Greengrass began to tell all lies about Fisher's domain, about how he had more buildings than he knew what to do with, about rampant corruption and Fisher's many sanitary gaps, about how his castle was already the largest around. Puissance, he said, was small and falling apart. After all, look at her age. She wouldn't have the stamina to fight for the budget to face it up. Fisher swindled you, lied Greengrass. You don't want to be swindled, do you? But hang on. How could I trust you? That was an unsurprising objection. So Greengrass was prepared. Every single thing I've told you, you could check for yourself, he said, provided Mounty remembered it. In a sleep-bound state, he'd be lucky to remember his own name. Still, at least theoretically true. I know we've had our differences, and I really do appreciate you being noble enough to overlook them and listen to me. Thanks. So please, trust me a little more. Look at the numbers yourself if you have to. But you'll come to the right conclusion. Fisher was lying, Puissance needs to grant more, and she could do more with it. And if that's the case, you'll vote for her, right? Sure, if that's the case, mounted Monty. Greengrass held back a smile. That admission meant he was halfway home. Let me see those. Greengrass passed him the falsified papers, which Mounty then examined. The numbers were changed just slightly from the ones Fisher had provided to court, but all the changes together made it clear that Puissance was preferable to Fisher. The conclusion was just as obvious enough that even a tired stallion could see it. Forgery, by contrast, was good enough that most Wake ponies would have missed it. But, why me? Bring it around to Posey now. Because all the others gave their word weeks ago to vote for Fisher, Posey included. She wanted to vote for Puissance if she had this information. But you know her. She'd feel dreadful about breaking her word to Fisher, even though he'd swindled it out of her. But you... I know you haven't promised Fisher anything. That wasn't true, but as usual, Greengrass didn't let that stop him. Besides, if the grant goes to Puissance despite Posey's vote, then she both keeps her word and gets the outcome she wants. Wouldn't that be best? Well, yes, but I know I can count on you to do the right thing. And looking at the conflicted Mounty, Greengrass was sure he'd vote just like the Duke wanted. His eyes were scanning the paper, like he was hoping to find something that would release him from his choice. But there was nothing there. All the evidence on the pages showed that Puissance was the better option. Mounty would think it over, with Wade making his decision, breaking his word to Fisher. If that wasn't enough, he also considered to be able to rescue Posey from a bad choice. He flipped. Greengrass smiled at Mounty. Sorry to wake you. Pleasant dreams, and I'll see you at 6. And then he was gone.